if I cry, I might hand the phone and run, but I'll see if I can read them off, okay? So, my earliest solid memory of my mom, I was about 3 or 4 years old, and I was scared of the dark. I wasn't scared of many things, but for some reason I was scared of the dark that night. And I remember she came in my room and she pulled me in her lap and she quoted a verse to me, and it was Psalm 34:7. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. And I don't know how many hundreds of times my mom recited that verse to me as I was growing up. Anytime I was scared, anytime something came up, that verse over and over and over. And I memorized it, and I quote that to my kids now too. And I just think with all of her introverted ways, she ingrained a love for Christ in me. And so what I wanted to say about my mom is just one of the things that I loved about her. One of the things that she understood really well that I loved is that this world is not just what your eyes see. There's a lot more going on than that. And in the Bible, there's a story about the prophet Elisha. And in the story, there was an enemy attacking Israel, and Elisha was a prophet. And anytime the enemy was going to make a move, Elisha knew beforehand, and he told the king of Israel, and so the king was able to move his forces out of the way so they couldn't be defeated. The enemy king didn't like that very much, so he said, let's go kill him. Let's go take out Elisha. And he wasn't with the enemy, or he wasn't with the army. He was just in a city by himself, and he had a servant guy with him. And so he sent armies and chariots to kill him. And here's how it goes in chapter 6 of 2 Kings. It says, one night the king of Aram sent a great army with many chariots and horses to surround the city. When his servant got up early the next morning and went outside, there were troops, horses, and chariots everywhere. Oh, sir, what will we do now? The young man cried to Elisha. Don't be afraid, Elisha told him, for there are more on our side than on theirs. Then Elisha prayed, O Lord, open his eyes and let him see. So the Lord opened the young man's eyes, and when he looked up, he saw that the hillside around was filled with horses and chariots of fire. And what I loved about that is that God's army was camped around the whole time, and all he needed to do was to have his eyes open to see that there was more going on in that battle than what he could see. And my mom had eyes that could see the unseen parts of this world. When we were kids, she introduced us to the Narnia books, and that's some pretty good allegory about different things that are going on in the world outside what you can see. And not many things excited my mom as much as talking about how one day we would get past the shadowlands of this world and into the reality of heaven and the reality of life as God intended it to be. And her favorite book in the Narnia series was The Last Battle. Near the end of the book, the Narnian world, as the characters know it, ended. The world ended, and they stepped through a door. And on the other side of the door was the real Narnia, or it's an allegory for heaven. And they were looking around, and they were surprised that they thought they knew it, but it was more than what they knew in their world. And one of the characters says, I've come home at last. This is my real country. I belong here. This is the land I've been looking for all my life, though I never knew it till now. Come further up, further in. And my mom loved that part, and I love it too. And if you'll notice, if you look at the brochures, the programs today, we used a photo of her that isn't recent. It's from when she was young. And we did it on purpose because also in that book, The Last Battle, when they step through the door and the young king is walking up and further in, he sees his dad, but his dad wasn't all bent over and gray and worn like he was right before he died. His dad was vibrant and young at the peak of his life, and it was just, when we're in heaven, the verse that we had here that we used on the program, we picked. My mom used it in her last letter that she wrote after she found out about her diagnosis, that the bodies we have here are perishable. They get old and they break down, and we wanted to remember my mom, not with like the creaky knees and the pounds that she complained about and the gray hair that she whined about, but when I see her again, she will be perfect. in every way, without the struggles, without the barriers, without all the broken little chinks. She'll be the way that God created her to be. And I'm just so excited that I'm sad today that my mom isn't here. It's been a rough few days, but I'm excited because I know where she is, and she looked for that world, the real world, always. In the middle of all of the brokenness, she always knew that that was there, and I'm just happy for my mom. And I'm looking forward to that for me too. Getting through the Shadowlands, seeing my mama coming back.
So we're having a party.
Having a party.